Welcome everybody to It's a Crime. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Linda, and tonight we have a very special guest and my friend Chris McDonough from the interview room. Welcome, Chris. I'm so excited to have you on, and everybody has been just chomping at the bit for you to be on tonight.
Hi, Miss Linda. I'm
Hi.
grateful. I'm grateful for the invitation and so excited to be here.
Yes.
I just think there's going to be a great chat as always.
Great chat tonight. Yeah, we typically do have some pretty good chats, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Now, for those of you who don't know, Chris has been in Salida the last few days, and we're going to be talking about Barry Morphew tonight in the Suzanne Morphew case. And Barry just has been recently arrested, and he was appearing in court this morning. And he appeared in court this morning, and we're going to let's go back a little bit, Chris. Talk to us about when you first got there a couple nights ago, and then we'll work our way up, and we'll have some other things and info snacks to talk about tonight because we have them. So.
Yeah. So I had a chance. Well, first of all, I went to Indiana, as you know, right?
Yes.
We talked about that.
Yes.
And I really had an opportunity to get a sense of Suzanne and Barry. Right. Wow. And so then from there, I thought, okay, well, I got to go see this guy. So I left Indiana and we got here the night before last, just the day before they arrested him. And what was interesting, Linda, so I drove by his house. All the windows were open in his house. I mean, every one of them. Right.
Speak to this. Go in detail a little bit on this.
Sure.
You said this earlier, but I'd love to hear more about what this means.
Yeah. So it was obvious that it appeared that he was counter surveilling anything or anybody that was going by his residence. He had the top windows open. He had the lower floor windows open, and I could see into the house as I drove by. I'm not stalking the guy or anything, right? I was driving on the public street. I looked over, and there he is in the living room, and he's kind of one of those. And I just drove on by. Okay. And then I noticed some other assets that I'm familiar with. And I thought, oops, okay, something's up. And so I left the neighborhood. And, I told D-Man, I said, oh, they're going to move on him. I guarantee it. And he goes, why, Dad? And I said, trust me. Right. And so lo and behold, that the next morning, I guess he apparently came out, got on the main road going into Salida because he lives in Poncha Springs. Right. It's a little apartment complex. He's got the very end of apartment complex, and he kept his trucks on the one side street. And then, that's the other thing I forgot to tell you. He had a big trailer in front of his house. Now, my initial impression was, he's going to run. Okay. And it's interesting to see that motion today where the PD put in the affidavit that he's a flight risk. Okay. So I think they had the same thought, right?
Well, you see the land being sold or the house sold and the land. Remember I was saying, why would he dump the land that he's going upside down on it? You're not making anything. And you could see this kind of building up. Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And he started to dump all of his assets. And then, of course, there was just this sense that, when you drive by and you see this, big old trailer out front. And the other thing, guess what else was out front of that house?
What else?
Suzanne's Range Rover.
Really?
Yeah, the white one. Now, I think one of the girls are driving it. It has the Purdue license plate on it. Okay. And as I drove by, but here's another interesting thing. In Indiana, I had information that he had sold the other Range Rover to a friend of his in Indiana. And it's a black one. And I drove by the place where that vehicle was. And sure enough, there's a black Range Rover sitting right there. Now, I didn't get close enough to look at the VIN. I didn't get close enough to look at the plate. However, what's the coincidence of Barry's friend, having a black Range Rover, that's somebody had shared information with me that Barry had sold it.
No black Range Rover over there. Just be,
Exactly. And that's what I was looking for. right? Because I was looking to see where, how many Range Rovers are out there. Because remember when CBI hooked him up, they impounded those vehicles to check the
That's
GPS
right.
system, right? And then they released them back,
Right.
to back to him. So anyway, so there was one vehicle there. It was the white one. I'm assuming it's being driven by one of the daughters. And then as I drove back around, I told D-Man, I said, if they're going to make a move, they got to do it. And like I said, he was going into Salida, and they took him down. So he's, he's wearing stripes.
Yes, today we saw that, the orange and
Well,
white stripes today.
Yeah, tigers have stripes. Okay.
So do other people have.
What are you? Oh, look at that.
I found the animal.
What? Are you wearing a cat print? What is going on here tonight?
Well, this is about the only true cat story going on here. We found the cheetah.
Though, it's there you go. Stay with the theme.
Right?
Yep, stay with the theme.
Not hunting season anymore.
No. Oh, it will be in a different way.
In a different way. That's right. That's why I feel pretty confident in my animal print tonight. Don't know if you guys noticed, but
Yep,
I think it's only fitting.
Yes.
So now, okay, so you saw him the night before, then yesterday morning, he gets arrested outside of Anytime Fitness, right?
Yeah, and which is less than a block and a half from his house.
Right. That's in Poncha Springs, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So then he's there. He gets arrested, goes in, and then immediately asks for a lawyer.
Yeah. So, what happened is obviously they hooked him up, and this third charge, right? That I think is kind of a mystery charge, right?
I want to talk about that.
Yeah, and so I mean, there in my thinking here, and this is right now, it could be an officer that he made a statement to, okay, right then and there when they were hooking him up. There could be some evidence of somebody that he was trying to make a deal with, right? I mean, we don't know that yet, and once the arrest affidavit is released, then we'll have that probable cause of what the facts are.
Now,
on that, but
I had a thought about that because obviously you don't know, but then I started thinking, okay, if we rewind time back to the beginning and just talk about the bike, if that bike was never involved, let's just say, and if he led people, let's say, with the bike theory to the police officers, could that also potentially be a similar charge that they would say, hey, you're telling us about this, but it's not, as an example? Or would that be something entirely different? Or could
certainly that could be. But also remember, one of his buddies from Indiana that he grew up with is also a cop there. Okay, and when Suzanne first went missing, he was the only one Barry asked not to come down. Okay,
right.
Everybody, right? Remember that from the very beginning,
right?
So is it something involving even that individual? It probably isn't, because that guy's an Indiana police officer. Okay, but if the state can somehow tie those elements to that crime to a public official, it's probably not going to work because he is in Indiana. But maybe there's something else in between that could connect that dot. But I think we're going to have to wait. And be patient on that one to see exactly how that dot gets connected.
Yeah, it's going to be very fascinating. I thought about that. I thought about the bike today, and I thought about the triangle, of course, thinking, maybe it's such a don't look over here, go look over there, or whatever. So a couple things came to mind today, but it's going to be interesting. Even that's there is interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
That piece.
Yeah. Break that down for me, what you're thinking on that.
Of what part? Just how what's interesting is on there, you mean?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. It could be so many things. Like, does it have to do with the bike? Does it have to do with somebody else? Does it like we're just talking about? Is it something that's just last minute? One of the things, and I'm not sure if I can speak to it, but I believe somebody that he knows, who's a female, has been or was maybe in the past a first responder. But and so would that tie into something too? I mean, could it be that just is out of connection with her that something happened? Or I mean, I'm just guessing right now because we're just trying to understand that the scope or the spectrum that could be on.
Yeah, no, you're always fascinating, and so a couple of the points though that are really interesting here. So to dovetail into what you just said, so I went up that 225 where he lives, okay, and I looked at your triangle, okay, and because you told me to, so I follow orders, okay, I
you
follow
don't
orders.
need the triangle.
No, because as I've told you from the very beginning, your mind is you connect some very good dots, and I told you missed your calling. You should have been a criminal analyst, right? And it's never too late, by the way. Make sure that Mr. Linda gets you down to wherever you need to go and get that training, and then put it to work. Okay,
I might do that.
Okay, don't make sure you do that. So,
criminal analyst, I got this circled.
Okay, so with that in mind,
yes.
I went to the triangle that you laid out. Okay, I went to mile marker 207. Right, that's where you asked me to go.
Yeah.
Okay.
West of the triangle.
Right. I looked down to see if there was some indication of potential fire. Now, what I saw at this point, I cannot say personally yet, okay, that there was a fire there. Okay? It doesn't mean though that there wasn't a fire in that region at some point, because when I was there, even today, it had snowed. Now you have to understand the elevation here. I didn't quite grasp what elevation these guys are at, right, where they were living. Okay, it was almost 5,000 feet, okay? And the terrain is like this. Okay, I mean it is like boom right down, and so I thought it was kind of like this. Okay, but there are parts where it is pretty straight down.
Interesting.
Okay? And so if there could have been a fire down there, it's possible I couldn't have seen it. So I'm not going to
the documents. I'm going to send you the documents, and I'm going to send you what I have on that, officially the documents and the CAD on that.
Okay.
And just so you can take a look, because what's interesting is it's huge. This fire is huge and went on for 24, 30 hours. It's not little, so it's very strange. I'll send that to you. I'm going to write that in big letters here.
Oh, okay. And by the way, I misspoke. It's 8,000 feet. It's 8,000 feet. Yeah, my Karen just corrected me. She just looked at me like, come on. Okay. That's why I love her. She's like,
she's
listen.
Great.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so it's 8,000 feet, right? And so, and by the way, I mean, it is literally like this.
Yes.
Okay? So when you go up the road, okay, I'm trying to stay in the camera frame. You go up the road and, it's 225. So it's a public access. Okay. We drove all the way up, and on the left is Puma Path, and you can see there's you can see
picture of the triangle. You can see the triangle there.
Yeah, no, and all of that. Okay, so just your assessment of this, and I will tell you, I agree with this assessment here that all of this area right here is within 100% control of Barry.
Mm-hmm.
All of it. I mean, he has visual on all of this, okay, because his house is so high. Okay, I talked to one of his friends recently, who told me when the FBI was searching the house that Barry had gone across the hill and gone up on top of the hill to surveil them while they were searching the home.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes. And then he came down and told some of the, remember there were like 4 guys that had come out from Indiana. Okay?
Yep.
So he tells them, hey, let's go behind the house, essentially break the crime scene barrier and go behind the house so he can see a little bit closer of what they're doing. Okay. Now, to me, it's like, well, that's a no-brainer. Okay. That's, that's sculpatory evidence that, consciousness of guilt is what we used to call that.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the elements they have to prove is what they call mens rea, is meaning an evil mind. Okay. So in order to, prove first degree murder, you have to not only show the elements of the crime, but you also have to show somehow that the behavior of the crime equals to the seriousness of the charge. Okay?
Gotcha.
So one of the ways that we do that, right? And I have many people sitting on, death row, and they're in prison for quite some time. But one of the ways you do that is you have to show, what was their state of mind. Okay. And usually the jury instructions, if you've ever sat in a jury, the jurors, the court admonishes the jury that, look, this isn't reasonable doubt. Okay. It's not kind of doubt. Okay. It's beyond reasonable doubt, meaning there is no question in your mind that in his mind, okay, he did what he did. Okay. So it's this matching of minds, for lack of a better term, and that's what they call mens rea. Okay, that these 2 pieces of the puzzle have to connect together in the court trial. And so this is one of the ways that you prove that is you show that this guy had overt acts, okay, such as, hey, let's go behind the crime scene tape while they're processing it. Okay. Well, that's a crime to enter into a crime scene that's active. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, the intent there was him to go and to surveil the house as they were processing the house. Isn't that fascinating?
It's very fascinating. And we saw him, and is that including too, you're talking about the trail cams he also put up in the back?
Yeah, yeah. And remember when he was putting all that up? Yeah, with Andy?
True.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's his mentality. Okay.
He chose that over searching that same weekend, those same 5 days. He chose that over using his skills to search for his missing wife.
Yep. And you see the behavioral analysis theme when you drive by his house and he's counter surveilling everybody that comes in or passes.
Yeah. Now, and speaking of surveilling too, Matt's asking, what's your thoughts on AWP's experience there? Because they had a weird, odd experience there too, right? They went there and it seemed like somebody was scoping them out.
I don't know enough about that, to be honest with you. Okay. I love those guys, but I don't know enough. I know there were a lot of rumors out here, and there's whatever hocus pocus, but I'm pretty well grounded in experience and facts that say, hey, it is what it is, and
all I know is basically they felt uncomfortable. That's the extent. That's what I know for sure. Other than that, I don't know. Thank you, Brent, and thank you, Matt. Okay, so
I'm loving the people out here personally. I mean, I think they're fantastic. Yeah, they're awesome.
I ask you about the mood out there. What is going on? There must be relief, but there must also be like, oh my gosh, what is it like out there?
Yeah, so the sense of some of the people that I've been talking to is it's about time. Okay? In fact, I had one lady tell me, well, it's about time. Okay? Yeah. Because I think they describe him almost as if, this guy just comes driving through town and says or does whatever he wants to say or do. Okay. Yeah. And everybody's just supposed to take it. Right. And when you go back, if you remember, and if I can plug the other video too, if it's okay.
It's amazing.
Okay, so if people go back and watch that, there was this sense of entitlement
Yes.
that he's always had.
Yes.
Okay? Well, he just carried that over into Salida. Okay, and Suzanne was the complete, almost polar opposite. Yeah, and so I can really see now some of the dynamics coming together of this great little town. This is an Archie community. The people here are very, just free spirited. Just hey, what's up, dude? One of
Yeah,
those.
small
Hey,
town.
let's play guitars. I mean, it's like old Southern California back in the day. It's like they just took SoCal and they stuck it in the middle of the country and they called it Salida.
That's
Okay?
cool.
There's a town in Southern California called Encinitas, and it's a hippie town, absolutely cool vibe. It's right on the water. It's right through the 101. That's Salida on the West Coast. Okay?
That's awesome.
I mean, it's like granola. It's like peace, love, harmony.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that's awesome.
That's what the people are here. Or that's who the people are here,
That's
right?
awesome.
And so you take that vibe and this creative spirit that's here, okay? And then all of a sudden, this guy shows up from Indianapolis, Indiana, Alexander, Indiana, and he's a wrecking ball. Okay?
Yeah.
He's like, people were like, yeah, the guy would just drive through town at, whatever speed he wanted.
Like the rules don't apply. The rules don't apply.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they didn't dig that. They didn't like that. And so,
I don't think small town would. I just don't
Yeah.
think small town would, yeah.
So that's the vibe. Yep.
Now, Anna, Lily's mom, I can see that you have a super chat, and I'm so sorry it's not popping up, but I'm gonna read it out loud. She says, "Thank you both for your coverage on this case." And the video that Chris is talking about is an awesome video on Barry and Suzanne and where they grew up, and fascinating how we see this development of both Barry and Suzanne, but Barry, just the vision of him on a Friday night, driving his car and doing bicep curls while he's driving, and always with a woman. And here we see again with a woman, even though it was very quickly after Suzanne went missing, 8 months later or something to that effect. And very interesting. And yeah, it's like a wrecking ball. Like you said, he just blows in town. It seems like owns the place, and Barry's Barry, like he's Bear. That's who he is. And like it or lump it, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And that's about it.
Yeah, no, you nailed him, Linda. You nailed him. You nailed him, 8 months ago. Okay. And by just coining him Bear, you basically, remember the old Three Stooges where you go like that and try to, do that?
Yeah.
And put that up as a blocker. Okay. Well, Miss Linda did this. Okay. And I think I think he's been scrambling. It's a crime in his head for the last 7 or 8 months. Okay. And trying to deal with that.
Very much.
Well, that's okay. That's okay. You're in good company because, there's this idea that you tapped into, okay, was his alter ego. Okay. And remember, everything is on his terms.
Yes.
And that includes relationships.
Yes.
Everything. So we don't know where that goes with his relationship and Suzanne. We definitely know, I know for sure now, in high school, he went through women on his terms, and he broke up with every woman. Okay? They didn't break up with Barry. Okay?
Interesting. So he had the power even in that.
Yes.
And get dumped.
Well, right. And here's this high school stud, I'm a baseball player. I'm going to major league. Oh, you're not good enough for me. Goodbye. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I think he objectified women very early, okay, in his developmental years. And that's why it was critical. If we understand Barry, the way to understand Barry, you have to understand that little league baseball field.
Yeah, that was
because it was there that his dad Roger would just drive baseballs to him. Okay, so I talked to some of his old teammates, and they said his father, Roger, would come out to the baseball field with him, and he was a coach, and he would just hit the ball so hard, okay, to Barry, okay, that they witnessed at times Barry was crying as a kid. Okay, now this is some mentality that I'm going to get into in the next couple of days here, and kind of knock that down a little bit more. But seriously, that type of development with an overbearing father, okay, and then
Yeah.
we talk about some of the other behaviors that just created this narcissistic person that felt that he was untouchable. It really did.
Yeah, when you start young like that, you create that pattern within yourself, and it's just going to recreate until you realize, or if you're aware enough that it needs to be changed, right? It's just going to continue on. And to me, I see Barry as this strong male ego guy, and it has to be, things have to look good from the outside, especially with Suzanne, and this is my opinion, Suzanne and the relationship, and things look good. I mean, God forbid if it looked bad in front of people. That's how I feel. You had that, everything's great and everybody loves Barry.
Yeah, what's going to be interesting, to kind of dovetail in your thought there.
Yeah.
If he right now feels deflated for a little bit, right? What did you think when you saw him this morning?
Yeah, he said even the very first "yes, sir" that I heard was very interesting to me.
Yeah, very sheepish, wasn't it?
Very. Did you? Yeah, you saw the scene. Yeah, first thing out of his mouth was, not what we typically see.
Right, and that's so. Now, if you think about that for a second, right? His persona is, I'm a real tough guy, okay, but now, okay, he's caged, okay, and meaning what goes on there now is, the deputies say stand against the wall, okay, don't turn around. Okay? When that door opens, you turn one step to the right, and then you take 10 steps forward. You got that? Don't look at me. Right. And all of this structure now comes in. Okay.
Yeah.
That says, no. Okay. This is our house now.
Yeah.
Okay? So the jail has systems. They don't have, you're there in name. Okay. But you have a number.
You're a number, yeah. You're no longer
a,
Barry. You're inmate number, da.
That's right. Your booking number, so-and-so, exactly. So now everything is controlled. When you eat, when you sleep, when you wake up, what you eat, how long you have to eat it, okay? Because if there's court appearances, they may throw a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at you, okay? And, Barry's not used to that. Okay?
No.
But so that's phase one in the first 24 hours. So what's going to happen is you're going to see what typically they see is when they do an initial medical intake is what they call it. Okay? You sit down with a nurse and then they ask you a series of questions. You feel suicidal? Have you ever? Blah, blah, blah. And they go down this whole list of medical questions, right?
Yeah.
And if you answer in any way, okay, that, that you feel that there's a problem, then they put you in a special place,
right?
Okay, for observation, and that 24-hour observation is every 15 minutes.
Right,
they're supposed to check on you. Now, I know that's going to be hypervigilant here in Chaffee County because they had a case, recently a couple of years ago where they got sued for a problem. Okay. And so they're not going to let that happen with this high profile situation. So, so where I'm going with this, it's going to be fascinating when they do a psychological eval with him. Okay. And they have a forensic go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, yeah, I agree. Keep going.
Yep. They'll have a forensic psychologist sit down with him. Okay. And now what will be interesting is to see where that goes. Does the defense grab it and say, see, we told you, he had all of these A, B, C, and D's, okay, through his whole childhood and stuff. And therefore, what happened, they tie it into the narrative, right? And then they present it as a defense, okay? But what's going to be really also to dovetail into that is for them to do that behavioral analysis and behavioral assessment from the psychological aspect, right? I'm just talking about my training is just in criminal aspects, right? I mean, to get them to that place and let the experts look at them. Okay, so there's two different trainings there. I'm not a doctor, never have, never will be. Okay, but out in the field, okay, my job has always been to get them to those guys so they can figure them out. Okay, so it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, even on that level right now, based on how he's acting today.
Very. And Jen, so there's a couple people who are asking about court today. Jen asks, when will we possibly get a plea? Enjoy watching you both. And also the question from Sarah is, why the public defender if he has money? And hi, Sarah. So thank you to you both.
So which one you want to take?
You start with the first one. The
plea?
Yeah.
I don't know if he'll take a plea. If there are other parties, potentially, if they tie other people up into this, they may roll that individual into Barry.
That was one of my questions too about that, but keep going.
Yep, that could happen if there is, other parties involved. Okay, because they'll say to him, "Hey, we don't have the body," or they'll be thinking, "If we don't have a body, okay, and this is a circumstantial case, then we need a witness." Okay, and so they'll probably, if that's the scenario, and we'll wait to see. One of the scenarios could be they'll roll that individual into Barry and use him to testify against him. The second is why the public defender if he's got money? That is a great question. So Barry, again, is allowed to have, to have an attorney. And now what they'll do is they'll have a hearing, to establish what his financial situation is. Okay.
Yeah.
If they establish that he has enough to have his own attorney, then he can do that. Okay? If the girls quickly petition the court for custody, i.e. Mallory to Macy, okay, because she's an adult, she can petition the court to retain custody of her little sister. Okay? And then she can also petition the court to somehow get a power, of attorney or a writ to have those assets, under her control. Okay, so if that's the case, then a public defender will stay on the team. Okay, but right now for this hearing, because it was only within 24 hours, the court will assign a public defender to represent him. Right,
and also Scott Reich was talking about. I know. Letitia will have her peanut butter with BM.
I'm not going to say anything. That was awesome.
Letitia had a lot of threats to her peanut butter, she says.
Okay, there you go.
Scott Reich was talking about that too. If he did want to, they may go and see, like you said, with the assets, and he may not qualify to have a public defender, depending on his assets. Now, I have a super chat from Lady D, and I want to thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who's donated tonight and for hanging out. We have 3,000, almost 3,100 people hanging out with us tonight. So, Lady D, if you have a question, please put that in all caps so I can see it. I appreciate your donation, and unfortunately, I can't pop up your name for some reason because sometimes it skips on StreamYard, so it's a little frustrating. But if you do want to have a question, just by all means. Elizabeth says, okay, no hate to the girls, but why no plea for their mom in public, yet can go to court for Bear in public?
Yeah, they were there. They were just off the camera.
That's what
yeah. And, I think the girls are off limits right now.
Yeah.
That's my personal feeling. And I'm not saying, there's more to that. I'm just saying at this point, they're starting to process a whole bunch of other stuff here. And I can only imagine, because again, I think we have to talk about transferred behavior, right? Because if he's, remember, he's only been charged in the death of Suzanne Morphew. Okay. It's not that he's guilty in the death of Suzanne Morphew. Right. He's been charged and arrested for the death of Suzanne Morphew. Now it goes to the DA. They have all their hearings, and then it goes before, a jury, and then they determine that. Okay. And then everybody hears the evidence. At this point, we don't know what the girls are going to say or do. Okay. And so I think it's, especially with the little one, she's in high school, there's graduation coming, and, now both of her parents potentially are out of the picture. Okay?
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that feels like. So I'm not going to talk about the girls, and I know that your folks are so respectful here, and we'll just kind of have to let that take its course.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Again, to add to what you're saying about that, imagine you have your mom who was diagnosed with cancer for the second time. She goes missing. You're grieving her. Then your grandpa dies, right? And then now this happens to their dad. And it's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare, however way you slice it. And even the families, I said this earlier about, the Morphew family and the Mormon family, and they've known each other for 30 plus years, right? This is not an easy thing. It's not easy. And as Melinda said, Suzanne's sister, she said she has relief, but yet she still loves Barry. And, and it's hard. I mean, how do you separate that? I have a brother-in-law I've known for 40 years. It's just a hard thing. So that's what I want to say about the girls. And we can't say what their experience has been in that family or with Barry or however that looks. So we don't know how they're feeling or nothing. I know a lot of people want them to say something, but again, I agree with you. That's the extent I'm going to talk about them. And it's hard on the family. And it's limbo. Their mom still hasn't been found yet, right?
Yeah.
And that's limbo's hell. I always say that. Limbo is hell.
Yeah. And also think about, I'm looking through my notes here, think about what the protective order was today in the hearing. Right?
Yes.
So
just about to ask that. They called it. Yeah.
Okay. So the judge asked, right, the prosecution, or do you have any reason to object to the protection order? And the prosecutor said, no, none whatsoever, Your Honor. Okay. And so they went to the defense. And what did the judge say? He said, to his attorney, his public defender, he says, can your client basically, abide by the protection order? And here are the conditions. Cannot annoy, cannot harass, right? Yada, yada.
Threatening. Can't threaten. Yeah.
Can't threaten. There's three, elements to that. If he does, okay, then it's another crime.
Another charge. Yeah.
Right. So what we used to call that is the judge is balancing the right of the defendant, okay, to the rights of the girls. Okay. So the judge, has to balance to the law. Remember, the scales of justice in the United States are Lady Justice. She has a blindfold. If you look at that statue, she has a blindfold. That means she doesn't see color, race, creed, any of that. It doesn't exist in the court system. What she's holding are two equal weighted scales. Okay. And it's an adversarial, system that we have. You have defense attorneys and you have prosecutors. Okay. Scott happens to be a defense attorney. Okay. God bless his soul. Okay. I was on the other side. I was with the prosecutors. Okay.
That's what I was in school for. As I bug them all the time, is I wanted to be a prosecutor when I was young.
God bless them. Okay. However, outside of the courtroom, and I mentioned this recently on my channel, those guys are going to have pizza together. Okay. And hanging out, and they're the best of friends. Okay. But in the courtroom, it's literally sometimes two gladiators going at it. And, from the PD side, I've sat at that table, hundreds of times in trials, in murder trials, and watched these guys, and then the break would go and they'd be over talking about, so, how'd the softball game go with your daughter? Okay. Oh man, she hit a home run, man. Right. And then they'd come back and it's like, Your Honor, this guy's an idiot. Okay. It's like, I'm thinking,
you just had pizza together. What's going on?
what are these guys, manic depressive? What's going on here? And so the judge balanced that out for Barry today. Okay, he set the scales even. Now that also means then for the girls, okay, they get an opportunity to see their dad in an environment that they have no idea that existed. Okay,
Yes.
they're gonna go into that jail cell, and the same way they're gonna walk through those metal detectors, and the intake deputies are gonna say, okay, you guys wait over here, and there's going to be a special room, and it's for witnesses and attorneys and or family. Okay, and they're going to open that door, and dad's going to be on the other side of a piece of plexiglass with a little hole and a telephone. Okay, that in of itself is some trauma for two kids that have no idea what to believe, and if they do know, okay, have probably been scared half to death. Okay, yeah. Think about that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think for anyone to go through that.
It's horrific.
Yeah. And I mean, there's been a year of questions from everybody too, right? So yeah, I mean, the whole thing it's crazy. It's just crazy. It's been quite the year. We see different behaviors throughout the year. We see the searches going on, still no Suzanne. Hopefully it'll lead us to Suzanne somehow, some way. Maybe there's a miracle this week and she'll be found before Mother's Day. You never know. You never know. I know they're working as hard as possible. That's for sure. We just don't know. What else are you finding there that you're surprised about? I know we talked about the terrain a little bit and you said, wow. And Colorado looks a lot like Canada, doesn't it? It looks a lot like Canada.
Yeah. This area, obviously is, a big, laid back, community. And it's a lot like Southern California. Yeah, it's just in the mountains. Okay. The vibe is the same. The people are the same. And they're just kind of, what I mean by that is this is a little more artsy. Okay. But their spirit is pretty much, very consistent. They're very free thinking. The kids, they all skateboard, downtown. They're pretty laid back in tie-dye shirts. And I mean, these are the kids, right?
Yeah, easy going. Yeah.
They're good kids. They're good kids. There's a cool vibe. Great pizza, by the way. Unbelievable pizza. I think it's the water. And this is a town where a river goes right through the middle of town.
Yeah.
The Arkansas River goes right through the middle of town.
Yeah, I find the Arkansas River really interesting. Last year, I was diving into it a little bit just to see, because if you go a little ways, they actually, they river raft, like they whitewater raft. I don't think it's right there, but just a little bit outside of there, it starts to get pretty crazy. Isn't it the longest river? Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that. I don't know that one. I'm glad you know that.
Yeah, it was
there's a bunch of kayakers. It's pretty cool to watch them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a cool place. I mean, it's just, that's what you do. You go out, you hang out in nature there. I was just in a small town a couple weeks ago. Me and Mr. Linda, we went for our anniversary. We went and just to a small little town and chilled out. And it was exactly that. There's water. And we saw a whole whack of moose. These guys are huge. Like their legs are the size of your car. Like the top of their legs are the top of your car, and then their bodies. So they're huge, but we went there and it's kind of like this little town, same kind of feel. Everybody's easygoing, loves nature, loves, kayaking, and they're just chill. They're just super chill. Julie says, please remember that his children are victims and they deserve to have their dignity and right to be left alone to come to terms with what has transpired. 100% agree. Like Chris says, they're off limits. So the only thing that we've spoken about tonight is exactly that. It's a tough time right now for them. Really, really tough. And the family, both sides.
Yep.
For some reason, this is not popping up. Thank you so much, Monique. I'm so happy to have you guys on tonight. There's 3,200 people hanging out with Chris and I. Just a casual chat on a Thursday night. I think it's Thursday. I don't know.
I know, right?
Do you wonder what days it is too? Adam says, what did Barry do with her body?
What does he think?
Yeah, what do you think, Adam?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's part of the play here, right? I think the investigators have some things. It won't surprise me though if there isn't some forensics that comes back. Well, let's wait to see.
Okay? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see exactly that. I mean, it's been quite a year, and in one hand, it feels like not that long, and in another hand, it feels like a long, long time, and only they know. I did see Linda Stanley at the press conference yesterday, and so really kudos to her for sure.
One word. Bulldog.
I'll give you another word.
Can't wait.
Linda's.
Touche. I love it. Good for you. Yeah.
Linda's with an I.
I'll tell you.
Stop.
She's no nonsense, and I loved her answer. Well, I'm the DA, and it's my responsibility to file charges. If I think they're there, and I could win in court, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah,
that's paraphrasing it, but that's essentially what she said.
Yeah, this is my job, and and as my job, if I wasn't serious about this, or however exactly that, I wouldn't have made them. Good for her for saying that loud and clear.
Some of the best DAs I've ever worked with were the same personality as Linda Stanley. I mean, they are just get out of the way. And I'll tell you, I've watched them just tear defendants, apart because they're like you're so analytical, and you take that analysis, and then you have a team behind you who can put all of that on all of these, boards, right? Yeah. And we used to call it getting fonged. Okay, so remember the O.J. Simpson trial?
Long time ago.
Okay, so there was a criminalist by the name of Fong.
Okay.
And Barry Scheck, the defense attorney, on one of O.J.'s team. Okay, it was Shapiro, Scheck, and anyway, where I'm going with this is when they were asking the CSI, Mr. Fong, one of the questions back in the day, and you probably remember this, where he goes, isn't it true you wore a single pair of gloves? Right? Yes. Well, Mr. Fong, isn't it true that you used a single swab? Yes. Okay. And did you by any chance change your gloves when you picked up another swab? No. Okay. And then Barry Scheck so masterfully put a poster board of, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was like, well, then Mr. Fong, he says, what about that, Mr. Fong? Right? And everybody went, whoa, right? And we called that getting fonged. Right?
Getting fonged.
You do not want to get fonged. Okay.
That's so hilarious.
And so that is a byproduct of, these DAs and a good attorney. And I'll tell you, I think Linda's, going to turn it on. And
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. I can't wait to see who Barry puts up on the stand as, character witnesses. We'll see.
Well, yeah, the whole thing's going to be interesting. When is he going? May 27th?
7th. Yeah. It will be another hearing.
In the afternoon, I believe it is.
Yeah. And that'll probably be a bond hearing where they'll argue whether or not he should get out, and they'll probably argue whether or not the arrest affidavit should be released.
And that could be released. Yeah, I guess that will be released though to us anyways down the road, right?
It all depends, because this is an open investigation. Okay. And now the initial motion was to release it after he appeared. Okay. But behind the scenes, they had a second motion where the defense and the prosecutor has come to an agreement that the defense has 7 days now. Remember today in the hearing where he said, did you get the thumb drive?
Yep.
That's what that was all about. Okay. And so now he's got 7 days to review that and then petition the court why the arrest affidavit should not be released. Okay. And so that right now, Barry is sitting in his jail cell potentially with a copy of every one of those reports that those investigators had to turn over to the defense. So Barry could be busy tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah, studying for the next whatever, when's the 27th? What is today's date?
Today's the 6th. So we have 3 weeks pretty much.
So he's got 3 weeks to go through every piece of that, because remember, this is about Barry and obviously with Suzanne simultaneously. But right now on that side of the coin, the defense is, representing him. So he gets to see every piece of evidence that's up against him.
That would be so far for the arrest affidavit, right? He wouldn't see every piece. He would just see just enough.
Well, at some point, for discovery, the DA has to turn everything over for the defense. And now that means everything sits in Barry's jail cell. And if you go, he'll get the entire packet and he'll be able to read it 24/7, 365.
Wow.
Same with Lori Vallow. And same with Chad.
And Letitia Stokes, yeah. I know Letitia Stokes has 1,800 pages of core discovery, and she has 26,000 on a thumb drive.
Yeah, and they become their worst enemies because they tell people, "Well, I didn't do that," and their attorney's like, "Don't say anything."
Right.
So they become our friends. Quite frankly, we used to love it. When the defendant would drive the trial, is what we used to call it.
Oh, yeah.
Let him drive. He's been to law school. He drives a Bobcat, right?
Yeah. The Blankie's not there tonight. Now, Tyler says, Chris, can you please speak to the 5 fingers you and Mike used to hold up and refer to in old PE videos when it came to this case?
Yeah, I can speak to it, but it's a fluid investigation.
There we go. All right. We're going to go move on. Julie, in my opinion, Barry comes across as a master of manipulation, but it wasn't that good and he's got caught. And I just imagine for a moment what we've seen.
Well, I don't think he anticipated Linda and the social media impact. This is a new dynamic. And, I talked about this recently in a class that I was training some homicide investigators. I said, guys, this is a brand new world now. You have to embrace for the 21st century that, citizens are engaged and you have 2 choices. And we're seeing it in a couple of cases that are national right now, where they can either embrace a family, i.e., the evidence at hand that citizens can provide, and then tie that into your investigation, or they can push them away. Okay. Now, most investigators, if somebody is just a lunatic, it's just not happening. Okay. Well, the best way is, you wave and say, hey, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Right.
Yeah. Because you can spend weeks going down rabbit holes and never get to the end of it. Right. But then there's things like, and I'll use Miss Linda as a perfect example. There's things like where your mind starts connecting things. And if I was an investigator in terms of on this particular case, the first thing I would do is monitor everything that's going on in social media. I would have my crime analyst say, hey, go check out this, It's a Crime gal. Tell me if she's coming up with anything. Okay. Now that's what I mean by embracing. Okay, this new medium.
Yeah, be open to.
Yeah, and it may not be right. That's okay. Okay, or it may be right on target. Okay, but don't take the risk of either of those. Okay,
right.
Just get into it. In terms of seeing it. Okay, and I think at some point they're not there yet because they're still old school.
Yeah.
Okay? But they're having to realize, okay, that this is a new medium.
This is real. Yeah, it's out there. It's out there.
Yep, and absolutely. And there's a lot of smart people that are weighing in on these cases across the country.
And people are passionate, and they're passionate about these cases,
Yeah. I mean, my wife said to me, my sweet Karen says to me, she goes, Suzanne is me, meaning internally as a woman. Okay, not relating to Suzanne on any other level. I'm not Bear.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. Okay. But see, I didn't understand that dynamic. And I asked her, I said, sweetheart, what do you mean? Help me understand that. Okay. And what she was saying is, from her perspective was Suzanne is just like any other woman. Okay. And she speaks through this particular tragedy, okay, to every woman out there.
Yes.
And that as an investigator, okay, you have to accept that as a reality and then embrace it and say, okay, what exactly does that mean? Okay? And how does that impact my investigation? Do I dismiss it? Do I embrace it? And what can I do with that?
Right.
And so I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of this as we go forward. My personal opinion, and I think you've kicked it off, and there's a whole bunch of other people that have done an absolute brilliant job in the last year and going forward.
Yeah, I think if we use what we can in our gifts in some way and do it for good, it's really cool to see. There's different people that bring different things to the table. Some are incredible; they're boots on the ground. Some are, have the background, like you have, and incredibly talented in what you do. And then there's some that, like me, where I'm super nerdy and analytical to the extreme and see these and connect the dots and see if some people don't understand me. Some people will look at me and go, what the heck is she talking about? But I see what I see and I yank it out and I connect the dots. And if it's right, it's right. If it's not, it's not. But this is what I see. And so maybe in the future, one day, it'll be a case where these people who are criminals, they'll second guess. They'll second go, you know what? Maybe. And maybe this is a pipe dream. But there's going to be not just law enforcement looking at you. Now you have 7,000 YouTubers who's all talking about it and 6 degrees of separation. Who do you think is going to find out, right? You never know. Maybe one day, law enforcement will take a closer look right away at these. I can't tell you how many times, I shouldn't say how many times, but there's been a few times that I've been contacted that is very important, these contacts, and they don't go straight to, where they should. And it potentially is, I don't know why they reach out to me or another YouTuber or however it looks, but this is very important.
So, well, I will share with you, I shared your channel with the Native American Homicide Task Force. Okay? And I told them, I use you as an example. I said, you guys, you get an opportunity, you just go see, okay, what is happening out there. Okay? Because, these guys are now, they're responsible for tying together through the Bureau of Indian Affairs approximately 1,500 Native American women who have disappeared.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I wanted them to recognize the power and the brilliance that this venue or your platform, yours is an example. Okay, and there are others, right? Many others, right?
Of course.
But yours is a great example of saying, go look at some of the things she did during the Watts case. Go look at some of the things she did during the Daybell case. And then I told them, go look at some of the things she's doing in the Morphew case, okay, and others. I haven't, Letitia, I be honest with you, in full transparency, I haven't had time to keep up.
It's okay. I get it.
On that side of the coin, right? But all of those, if you think about it, all of those things that you've done, okay, that is what I was trying to get them to see. Okay. And so at some point there is going to be a transition where people, investigators, are going to have to come into this field and say, okay, what are my tools in the toolbox?
Yeah.
And this social media is, i.e. these kind of platforms, is another tool in the toolbox. It doesn't mean it's the answer.
No.
It's just a tool. Yeah.
And if anything, I had this aha moment when I'm covering a Canadian case, and I had this aha moment, and I thought to myself, because you know how I like timelines, if anything, my timeline gives a visual, right?
Yep.
And a spoken visual. If that's all that comes to the table for law enforcement, and they see it as a visual going, okay, she's walking us through and she's doing that, they probably have their own, of course, but maybe, when you're actually writing it, it's harder to think, but as you're watching it, things come to mind. I thought about that. I thought, if anything, it's a tool that they look at the timeline and go, yeah, that fits there, that fits there, that fits there. Let's review that again, and not having to scrap a paper, writing it down or whatnot. That at the minimum.
Yep. And I went to your triangle and tried to validate, okay, so what's going on here? Where are these pieces that, and how does that fit into, some of the things that I may able to overlay into some knowledge that I, have uncovered. And so it's kind of like, and then of course the investigators, they've got all of the, the pieces of the puzzle. So it's interesting. You have a question here.
Fear No Evil says, I am curious to hear each of your opinions. I know it's just conjecture, but do you think Suzanne's murder was premeditated or a crime of passion? Go ahead, Chris.
No, you start. Ladies first.
I teeter on this because to me, a crime of passion would fit with the quick trip to Broomfield. Very scattered. However, there's a few little info snacks that happened the week before that I'm a little bothered about. The interesting happenings of the fire, and I don't know exactly the terms of that, so we'll get into that once we find out more information. But it's a little weird that, 6 days before Suzanne was reported missing, this fire happened. And maybe you can piggyback on that, Chris, as well, of some weird happenings during that week. Before Suzanne went. So I teeter, is this a premeditation? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, premeditation could be that morning if it's that morning. It could be 20 minutes before, right? It doesn't have to be a month or a year plan before, right?
Yeah, you have to show overt acts, right? You have to prove that, remember, you have to prove that evil intent, right? Mens rea, okay, evil mind, okay? So if it's premeditation, then the investigators have to tie together all of those acts that kind of lay out a picture. Okay,
yeah,
not post incident. Okay, post incident shows that those were behaviors and or evidence. Okay, remember, behavior is evidence. Okay, and so if those behaviors post incident were shown to be problematic in nature. Okay. That also goes towards consciousness of guilt, is what they call it.
Can you give us an example, not in this case, but give us an example, easy example?
Well, I'll give you an example in Barry's case. He went looking for the blue helmet down at the supermarket. Okay.
And then it turned up, lo and behold, on the side of a highway.
Right. So the question is, did he have the helmet? Okay. And throw it? Was he making a trip, had put it into that trash can, or maybe he was trying to create this illusion that he was going through the trash can? Okay?
Right.
Either way, okay, you have to ask yourself, why is this guy, oh, by the way, that's 7 miles from his house. Okay. Now, so let me get this right. Your wife gets run off the road less than probably 500 yards from your house. Okay.
And going to Poncha Market.
And her helmet's 7 miles away.
And let's add to that, the note says baby blue bike helmet and bike clothing. No description of Suzanne, not her height, not her weight, not her hair color, not her eye color, just a helmet and bike clothing.
Yeah, we'll dive into that. That's another 2 hours. We could
That's
talk
another
about
2
that,
hours, but we
yeah,
have to
for
say
2
that.
days.
Just the highlight,
Okay,
right?
so that's an example of a post incident behavior.
This is going to be an interesting question. I know it's only a guessing game at this point, but can you speculate on what evidence they may have?
I think they have, when they process that house, the one picture that stuck out with me, and it's still there, is that evidence tech walking out of the house with the paper bag and the squirt bottle. Okay, that squirt bottle was probably luminol. Okay? And if you go back and you look at those pictures,
Yeah.
somebody got that photo of that person walking out of that house. So what does that indicate potentially? It indicates there could potentially be, forensics evidence that is liquid in nature.
Yes.
Now that could be anything, okay? But primarily, luminol is utilized for blood.
Blood.
So if that is the case, then it's possible, okay, that has been sitting at the lab, and they just got all that results done, and now that's sitting in the investigator's case file, all those reports, and now it's sitting at Linda Stanley's desk.
Wow.
So that's the first time, or the first thing. The second problem, or the second thing that sticks out to me in terms of evidence, okay, is the question is, why did they go to that other house, okay, and dig up the slab?
Yes.
Okay? Well, at that time, Barry had not ordered much concrete. Okay? And then all of a sudden, there was a very large order of concrete. In fact, that tractor that the elderly woman heard, she believed it could have been him. Now, we don't know that, but that was her testimony,
Yep.
essentially, right?
Yep.
Did you hear something? Yeah, it was late at night, yada, yada. Okay? So that moved them towards that area, the investigators, and they got a search warrant of with probable cause to say, well, here's the reasons why we want to dig this up. Okay? So there could have been evidence recovered at that point, because you'll notice the FBI, their evidence response team, they call them the ERT. Okay, remember in the Daybell case where they stood in the backyard and they were siphoning? Well, they did the same thing down there.
That's right.
Okay, so let's not forget that.
That's right.
So what they found, we don't know yet. Okay, but at some point, that's another piece of the evidence. The next piece is the fact that he was liquidating everything.
Yes.
That he had on both sides of the house, by the way, not necessarily only in Colorado. He was also doing it in Indiana.
Yeah.
Simultaneously.
Yeah.
So that's another piece of evidence. Okay, now that's more behaviorally, okay, post-incident, okay, but it is evidence. Okay? It can be admitted into a court of law. Okay? And so then, there's other pieces of the puzzle. Obviously, his behavior, a lot of other things that kind of click together. Go ahead, Linda.
No, I just wanted to add to that about going back to the house that was cordoned off, because Cheryl McCullum, and I've said this in a different live stream, I can't remember if that was yesterday or when it was. She's a crime scene expert, and she was saying, if I have a crime scene that I cordoned off for 11 days, this is her quote, I found something substantial. I'm going to use luminol. I'm going to recreate what I think I have found. I'm putting strings up. I'm doing day and night photography. I'm listing everything. I'm going to use a 360 camera. I'm going to do everything I can to show what I believe occurred in that house. This is long past collected evidence. This is recreating a crime scene. That's right. Her exact words.
Yep, and she's right on target. And they use a device called the FARO. It's a FARO, and what it does is it sits in the middle of the room and it spins in a 360, and it does a 3D recreation. When she says pulling strings, she's talking about blood spatter analysis, okay, where you take a string and you take it where its point of origin, to its point of ending.
Ah,
And then you stand back and you photograph that particular movement of all of those strings. Okay, so what you're doing is you're recreating blood spatter. Okay?
interesting.
Yep, and so that's what she's talking about there. So yeah, she's right on target, and they held that for 11 days. So there you go. There's probably something, but we just don't know exactly.
Interesting. Spirit Seeker Squad says, Bear, I'll be Bear, I'll be in Alexandria tomorrow to do live Spirit Box section to try to give Suzanne her voice. Thank you, Linda and Chris. Thank you so much for your donation, Spirit Seeker Squad. Say that 3 times. Whew. All right. So now, anything else, Chris, that comes to mind? What do you think?
I think we're going to see some really fascinating things. I'm working on another situation that I'm trying to put together. Really, I want to do a little bit more about what makes him tick.
Yeah.
I think.
It's fascinating.
Go ahead.
No, it's just fascinating. I just can't even help myself. It's just so fascinating.
Yeah, no, I think what's really interesting here is one of the things that I learned about him was this, and I got this from one of his closest confidants, and I've been talking to this person for about 7-8 months now, okay? And long story short, guess what Barry listens to in his truck?
Oh, I know this answer.
What's that?
True crime podcasts.
Yes. I mean, and so on every hunting trip that he goes on, okay, with all his buds, okay, every one of them reported that the dude, all he listens to is murder mysteries. Okay. And now, well, I don't know, right? I mean, hopefully he watched your episode on, I'm not going to name him, that guy,
right.
Right. See, but anyway, so exactly. So isn't that really fascinating? That here's a guy that's going out to kill things.
Yeah.
And he's listening about killing things.
Yeah, like a double.
It's a double whammy. Yeah, he's not clearing this out. And I loved his booking photo. What's his shirt? It's camo. Yeah, put it up, Linda.
I have a side by side actually on him.
Oh, I'd like to see that. Oh, there you go.
Look at that from his, a year ago, almost to the day, to now. Yeah,
and so some of your folks are saying, "Come on, Chris, I listen to Murder Mystery," and I'm not talking about us.
No,
okay? I'm talking about somebody that has his background. Okay, you've got to compare and contrast here, right? I'm not saying all hunters are killers either, okay, at all. I know a lot of hunters that kill, animals to eat, and they got. And we talked about this. They have freezer full of food. Okay, but there are other hunters that kill for the thrill. Okay, and then you have to go back and say, wow, what did this guy do earlier? If that's a transition, because remember, one of the homicidal triads, okay, fire starting, cruelty animals, and bedwetting,
which is part of a serial killer too, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is how there's been so much research on those 3 behaviors and what they mean. And then, by the way, there's another dynamic to that. There are 2 more dynamics to that. One of them is alcohol, and the other one is pornography. Okay? And so everybody, if you ever get an opportunity, speaking of true crime podcasts, go listen to Dr. Dobson's last interview with Ted Bundy.
Fascinating.
He laid it out, and guess what? So you have to think about what exactly that means up here, okay? and how does that translate into, crossing the line, okay? Sexual deviance behavior. Okay?
Yeah.
You have to understand this principle that says, okay, what's a lot, what's a little, what's really over the edge. Okay. So some hunters are, what's a little? Okay. Some hunters are, well, that's a lot. Okay. But then their other guy is like really over the edge. Okay.
Right.
This is where Barry was. Okay. He had progressed in his escalation of behavior that it was like just keep piling it on. Okay. And eventually, you can't see who's behind that secret life. Okay. And you see that evidence of that type of thought process. Okay. And I'm just going to shift here for a second.
Sure.
Not necessarily from hunters, but deviants. Okay. Sexual deviant behavior. And you see this when they show up after 40-mile drive, okay, just to get a 12-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old in an apartment, right? Oh, I met her online. What? She's 12? Are you serious? Okay. Then they show them all the chat messages and say, well, cowboy, it doesn't work that way. Welcome to the rodeo.
Right.
Okay? So now you take a guy like Barry, okay, and you ask yourself, okay, what makes him tick? Okay. Well, that's where that baseball field is so critical. That's why looking at, you'll notice in the video, I said, this is Barry's house, Suzanne's home. Okay. And see, it wasn't his home.
Yeah.
Okay. Colorado was his home. And it was Suzanne's house.
Right.
It was a reversal.
Yep.
Okay. And so he trapped her in there and he isolated her. And so that's going to be fascinating to see what the forensic psychologist connects.
Yes.
Because they will. You watch.
That's the interesting piece to me too, where that crime of passion comes in and that premeditation comes in. And maybe that's, not realistic, but maybe it is. I just think about Suzanne didn't want to go. Barry really wanted to go. Why? What's his reasoning? What's his intention to go out there? And then she goes out there, like you said, you were saying, I think it was on the live stream, how he, put everything up on his truck like the Griswolds and away you go to Colorado. And she just really didn't want to go. And now now she's lonely there. He's off hunting and doing these trips. So you got to wonder, I do wonder about that going, has this been thought about, or was his intention like, we're going to go there and start, doing things and maybe it'll be better for us or whatever. I don't know. That's going to be interesting.
I think Suzanne, and in, my thought process here and, my experience with victims, I think this is a classic domestic problem. And back in the day, we used to call it, remember, the battered women syndrome, okay, where, these poor gals, I really felt that she was afraid of him. Okay. And that, he was so controlling, okay, that, there was one time where she went to Florida with her girlfriends. Okay. Guess what? Barry flew in for a single day to check on her. Okay? And then he left.
Check on her?
Yeah, he left. Okay?
Did she know he was checking on her?
Oh, yeah. It was like, what are you doing here? Okay. Now, this is the type of thing. Okay. That's an info snack. Okay. That for you. For only for Miss Linda. Okay. and that happened. I guarantee it. Okay.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
Yeah, no, it happened. Okay. And so this idea now, okay, you think about that and what exactly was that mean? Okay. Is that a tactic of intimidation? Is it a trust issue? Is she meeting somebody? No, she's with her girlfriends, on vacation, having a good time. And next thing you know it, here comes Bear, off of an airplane who in a 24-hour turnaround, and just to, see what you're doing. Okay.
This brings to mind that black and white picture. That black and white picture of him standing.
Yeah.
This to me, just right off the hop, I think about, he's thinking somehow possibly, there's some infidelity, but this is where I start to question, who are you unfaithful with, Barry?
Yeah.
Right away. That's like,
Yeah, it's called reflection. That's what that's called.
Of course.
Okay. And that reflection, okay, is, well, I'm not doing that. She's doing that. Okay. And so therefore I have to justify, all the mechanisms of control.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, that's what happens. Okay. And, he did that. And there are a lot of other things that we're discovering, out here, and not necessarily here, but that we've discovered that will, this guy fits the mold. I mean, he's going to be the poster child for, a problem of, and what's really fascinating, there was only one, he had an ex-girlfriend who is somehow, I think she's married to a professional hockey player now. But she was kind of the only one that, said, I'm not doing this. So I think it was Barry's ego that got bruised and punched. Right? And because Suzanne potentially was making a move to save herself and get out of it. And that could have been a trigger.
Nobody leaves Barry.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Nobody leaves Barry. Yep.
It's so sad. It's really so sad. Mimi's asking, could tampering with evidence also be physically moving the Bobcat to Indiana?
It could be. Yeah, great point, Mimi J2. Yeah, great to see you too, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really sad when you think of these things that are all adding up. And it's not easy to leave a person who fits that description. It's not an easy thing, and it can't be taken lightly. You can't just pack your bags and walk out the door, in my opinion, in a situation like that. If it is what, in fact, you can't, because there's repercussions.
Yeah, years ago, I had a case. I'm not going to give you all the details, but it was an FBI agent's wife. And they had a domestic violence fight, and she left for the evening with her 3 kids and her daughter. It was a very sad situation. She was in a hotel, and a suspect broke in and molested her, raped her, in front of the 14-year-old daughter. And while he was violating her mother and violently violating her mother, he turns to her and says, "You're next."
Oh my God.
And then, so I get the case. I find out that the victim's, husband is an FBI agent. And so I, get him. She's at the trauma center with the SART team, sexual assault response team. San Diego County has the best SART teams. Shout out to you guys down there, and Scripps Trauma Center, the best in the world, in my opinion, but I'm biased. And that said, I get this guy, and I pull him aside and I said, "Look, I need your word, okay, that when you go in there," because she's alive at this point. Okay. I said, "When you go in there, okay, I need your word, okay, that you're going to be her husband and not an FBI agent." And he looks at me and goes, "Yeah, of course I'm going to be, her husband."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
True story. He walks through the door. Okay. There's, a couple of nurses there. They, step out. I'm standing behind him. First words out of his mouth: "Look what you got yourself into." I could have killed him.
Yeah.
Okay? No offense, right? I grabbed him. I pulled him outside and I said, "You don't get it. Okay, let's go. You're out of here." He says, "That's my wife." I said, "Not anymore. She's my crime scene. You've been restricted from it. Get out of here." And I booted him. And, she divorced him right after that, obviously. And, the suspect was captured. I caught the guy, and he's in life in prison. But this is the kind of thing that, these guys, it's all about control, 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 control. And, some of the most violent crimes are the result of it. And it's not going to surprise me if this isn't one of them.
Yeah, the need for control. It just, Someone's asking would Cece being a firefighter be a public official?
Who's Cece?
Cassidy Cordova.
Oh, is Cassidy a fire guy?
I don't know if he was a fire. I didn't think he was a fire guy.
No, he's a golfer.
But firefighters in general, would they be classified as a public official?
Could be, yeah, sure. But not golfers.
I'm going to go to the next question.
Don't underestimate me.
I never do, sir.
I'm not you. I'm talking to.
I know, but
other people out there.
I'm saying you're an awesome man, and Karen beside you makes you better.
Well, I married way up. I told Mike a long time ago when I joined PE, when he asked me to just come on as a guest and stuff, I said, I'm going to lower your property values. And I've told you that from the very beginning. By the way, none of this was my idea. I was happy training cops, through other things, cold case, and doing all the other stuff that I do. What people forget is I may be retired, but I still do this for a living. Right? And so it's not like I ever retired. I've been doing this since 1982. So it's not my first rodeo. I mean,
you are truly a gift. You are.
I don't know if I'm a gift. No, I'm not. I learn. I'm willing to learn and to listen, right? Like anybody else. That when my sweetheart, and she's sitting right over here, but she'll tell you one day, when she first met me, she was like, "You're like talking to one of my girlfriends." I was like, "What are you talking about?" No.
Don't tell me that. Don't put me in the friend zone, Karen.
And I was like, what does that mean? And she goes, well, you learn how to listen. You listen. And I said, okay, what does that mean? Right. And she corrects me. And I'm willing to say, okay, I was wrong. I apologize. Yeah. I'll fix that.
That's a huge thing.
Well, I don't know.
That's a huge thing for anybody to admit when they're wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah. It all depends. I mean, on social media, you're always wrong. I mean, there's a lot of lunatics out here.
There's a few. There's, as we know.
It's okay. I tell my mods, just make them go away.
My mods, you know what? Let's do a shout out to the mods tonight.
Yes,
They're incredible. Incredible. Thank you so much. We now have 3,700, almost 4,000 people hanging out with us tonight on a Thursday night. It's Thursday Night Live with Chris McDonough from the interview room. And we're going to take a few more questions. I know you're probably getting tired. But do you think Barry's girlfriend flipped on him?
Well, I think she's MIA right now. She's been laying low. And everybody knows who she is in this town. And so, I think she is laying low, and I don't know if she flipped on him or what other evidence. And by the way, she's not the only one. He had a couple, okay? And I mentioned this a couple of months ago that they were playing each other, that he was playing them. Okay, and I don't think she still to this day, believe me, but it will come out that there were two of them. But one of them got smart, may have watched us and said, "Oh, I'm out of here." Okay. And, the other one stuck around as recently as last week. In fact, on Suzanne's birthday, my understanding is they went out for dinner. Go figure.
Well, doesn't that speak volumes?
It does. Just
like the search is a pattern in itself. Just like the searches, just like the big days, just like it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yep. And if she's watching, hello.
Yeah. Welcome to It's a Crime. and the interview room.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
Melissa says, seems like he was premeditating way back, thus the move to Colorado and isolating her from everything and everyone she knew. We see that, right, with controlling relationships. We see the isolation or abusive relationships, right? There's a lot of isolation that goes on sometimes from everybody, friends, family. You know, the victim hears how no one likes you, and
yeah, no, and you've unpacked that masterfully with some of the things that you've covered. I mean, if you remember, just think of all those little dots where you connected with Chad, and what a wackadoodle he is, right?
yeah,
And so, yeah, I mean, here's a guy that looks like milk toast. Okay, I mean, even today, you see him in these court trials, and he's kind of like, oh, well, hey, I'm writing books about, porta potties,
oh
to
man,
coin Miss Linda's, terminology.
portal potties.
And you see, so, the defense, is like, hey, dude, you got to look like you're normal. Okay. Cause the jury in the world's going to be watching you. Okay. So today it was embarrassing for Barry to be in the tiger suit.
Yeah.
Okay? So as a result of that,
tiger suit. I love that you said that.
the tiger suit, right? So because multiple stripes. Well, he's used to tigers. He, played on the tigers.
I love that.
In high school.
I have the animal print tonight.
Will he be drug tested? Yes, absolutely. They'll pull his drug. They pulled his blood the moment they booked him. Right? And that's for the defense to show that he wasn't under the influence of anything that day of the arrest, to break that barrier away. But anyway, going back to, these wackos.
Yeah.
One of the things you heard today in the hearing was, my client wants to have permission to wear a suit. Okay?
They want him in civilian clothes.
Yeah, well, you want to make him look normal,
right?
Okay, it's kind of like saying, if you look at Bundy, the judge was enamored by Ted Bundy during his trial,
right?
Okay? Yep, and he said it. He said, "Mr. Bundy, blah blah blah." But on the other side of that coin, in that secret life, remember that's his public persona, and that's what just happened today. The public persona was, guys, we can't have the private persona, i.e. the tiger suit. Okay. We need the public persona.
Right.
Okay? So that's life number 2. Okay. What we want to see in the trial is life number 3. And that's the secret life. Okay? Mm-hmm. And only in the secret life is where all violent crime, okay, and all violent, sin occurs.
Right.
Okay? That's where that life is. So teach your daughters to ask one question to boys. Okay, when they're dating the boy. Don't ask the question, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Okay? Because how is that boy going to answer? And I used to teach my daughter this, and she didn't have very many dates. Okay? And she was like, Dad, you're always analyzing, she'd tell us, Dad, you guys are always analyzing my boyfriends. I said, yeah, but it works. Okay. So, and she married a great guy today. She's got a fantastic, husband. Long story short, I taught her, I said, look, you have to ask one question, and the way you present it, okay, is also going to determine what kind of answer you get. Okay. She goes, okay, what is it? And I said, now, if I asked you, so tell me a little bit about yourself. Okay. How are you going to answer, the public or the private persona?
Public.
Obviously. I already know the answer, right? Okay. So now if I reframe that question, just one iota, and this is the question. Tell me about your life. Now, you have to process. Now, if somebody has guilt or what they call consciousness of guilt or jeopardy, okay, i.e. a criminal who's done something, that individual now has to say to themselves, which one? In here, okay?
Right.
Which one is she thinking of? Okay. So you'll see pretty quickly. Okay, you'll get a response. Okay, is what they call reflexive response, and that response is this. Okay, well, what do you mean? Which one? Okay, what do you want to know? Okay, and so they present this idea that I'm an open book. Okay, so you don't say, okay, you go this direction. You say, I don't know. What do you want to share?
Right.
Okay. Because now at this point, if this person immediately goes to, the public persona or the private persona and they stay there, okay, you're going to know within a couple of minutes based on one other behavior. Okay. What do you think it's going to be? Take a guess. No wrong answer.
His mannerisms.
Okay. If he says, tell me about your life. If he asked the question, okay, then you can trust him.
Right.
If at no point
He
is interested in trying to understand that piece of your life, okay. I used to, as my sweet wife would say, boys are like buses. Okay? You see destination, okay? You can determine whether or not you're going to get on it, okay? If you miss it, there's one right behind that one, okay? Just keep standing at the bus stop. There's another one coming, okay? But then she would tell him, lift up the baggage compartment and look inside.
Yep.
Because
absolutely.
If it's broken, you aren't fixing it. Click.
I want to rewind just a sec there when you were talking about Barry and Stripes. One of the things that I had said on my channel about Chad Daybell going to court was he showed up with a red tie. And I said right away, this is horrible. You do not show up when you are they're not charged with murder, but everybody's thinking it. And there's 2 children that are dead and a whole bunch of other people. And he shows up to a red tie. And I kept saying, dumbest move you could ever do is wear red tie. Well, sure enough, the next time they show up, he's in a blue tie, right? He's not wearing the red one. What are you doing wearing that, right? It's just that.
Yeah. No, that power tie and that passive aggression, right?
Don't do that.
It's going to be interesting to see how that unfolds. One day we need to set a time to talk about him as well.
I have so much on him, as you know, Chris. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's been a while.
And I've uncovered some patterns lately. Some people don't understand me, but again, there's a method to my madness. Some people won't understand, but maybe the law enforcement will. Beth says, hi, you two are great. Can you go over the fire, the second bike, and how those things were related? Well, the fire is something that I had found while I was working on the timeline, and it had happened on Monday, May 4th, which is 6 days before. So it was a head scratcher. Why did this happen? How did this happen? And who was there? And so I found out that on May 4th, there was a fire that came in. The CAD said it was human caused. Then it was later changed to saying it was a branch on the power lines. Now that's something for you, Chris, too, is there's those power lines, but I don't think there's a heck of a lot of trees surrounding, because there's double set of power lines. One's the big, huge, tall ones and not so tall. And I'm going to send you those documents after we finish. But
okay.
So that's the fire. I found out that Barry Morphew was a volunteer firefighter at that fire. He was, in fact, there. So it made me scratch my head a little bit as to, wait a minute, 6 days before, and there's all these funky things happen during the week. And then, of course, we know on Saturday and Sunday, him going to Broomfield. So there's just a few of those things. And that's the fire. And you could speak on the second bike, because I found that out from you.
Yeah. So there was apparently a second bike purchase approximately 2 weeks before the incident, and where Suzanne disappeared. I don't know, or we don't know, if that was the bike that they recovered, because I understood there was also a really nice bike. But what strikes me initially, being up here, number one, that road is so dangerous. That highway, going up there, you'd be nuts. I didn't see a single biker on that road.
Interesting.
Driving, and I've been here 3 days, and I've gone up that road, half dozen times now. Okay? And I've yet to see one biker on there. Number one. Okay. And then I have to guess, I have to presuppose that, Suzanne, came down from her house, whatever it is, point five, tenths of a, distance, just half a mile from her, front door.
Yeah.
And, somehow, she gets run off, the road from a guy coming down 225, okay, past her private road, okay, at Mach 1, because that coming down that road is pretty steep, okay. And then, let's use that, hypothetically, right? And let's say he cut her off, okay. Well, number one, there was no evidence of that the very first day, that, because you would have seen, some serious, because she would have had some serious trauma. That is literally a really steep drop where that bicycle was recovered. So that's the first, that's the other problem with the other bike. So if it was the really nice bike, okay, the most expensive one of her, mountain pass, then, I'm sure we're going to find that out, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. That said, now if we take that and we think about it, okay, well, you have to connect this dot here between the Poncho Springs Market and the bicycle where it was recovered.
Yeah.
Okay? That is just, I think it's almost 8 miles. It's 7 point something miles. Okay? Well, if a suspect were to, let's go with the abduction theory.
Yep.
Okay, let's go with the abduction. Well, first of all, you have to control Suzanne. Number one. Okay, so we have to presuppose, okay, that she's either knocked out, unconscious, delusional, and or incapacitated, to where you could get her in the car, okay, and then at some point you decide, i.e., the suspect, okay, I've got to get rid of this. I got to get rid of this bike helmet. Okay, so okay, I'll just throw it off the side of the road because everybody knows that I haven't taken her. Okay, so that in of itself, that logic makes no sense.
Right, makes zero sense. Excuse me, ma'am. Can you please take your helmet off? Oh, thanks.
Yeah, while driving and while controlling her, number one.
And showing DNA.
And showing what?
DNA.
Yeah. And so to answer one of your guys' questions in here, I saw over here, is there no longer a presumption of innocence, right? Well, here's the way this works, okay? Probable cause to arrest, okay? Presumption of innocence, okay, is determined in a court trial.
Correct.
Okay? He's presumed innocent until found guilty. But there's probable cause to arrest him for a crime of murder. Okay? So you've got your facts wrong. Presumption of innocence does not apply until he's in custody. Now that he is, you're right. He's presumed innocent until found guilty. But as an investigator, and as the investigation went forward, there is probable cause to arrest him, i.e., get him off of the street until so he can't hurt somebody else. Okay? That's Lady Justice. That's why the scales are balanced and why there's a blindfold. She doesn't see anything other than justice. Yeah. Justice to victims and to the suspect. Okay? So now we take this other piece, 7 miles, okay, away or thereabouts from where this abductor, found her. And, Tuesday, that following Tuesday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Barry shows up and says, hey, I'm looking for have you seen my wife's baby blue helmet?
And bike club?
Yeah. And well, what is she, where? Well, who? She's wearing bike clothes.
I'm looking in the garbage can.
Yeah. Well, he was focused on that garbage can out front. Okay. And remember, it was 5:00 in the evening and they were closed, and he knocked on the door, and there was a young man who works there, came to the door, and he was like, can I help you? And the manager was, she wasn't very happy that he let him in. Okay. And it was kind of like, what? And he writes, he scribbles it out and hands it to her, this note of, and et cetera, et cetera. So all of these factors in of itself boy, those are just keep checking the boxes of red
Yes.
flag, red flag, red flag.
Yes, it's just, and it's odd. And that's when you start connecting the dots going, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. Why is that? Let's look into that, right? Retired Sergeant Melinda, nice to see you. She says, hello, Linda, was wondering when you will be writing your own book. I've actually had a couple of people ask that, interestingly, and having it publicized. I don't know. I love your videos. Thank you so much for watching and your support. Hi, Chris. You both are great. We have a lot of fun, don't we?
We do. And Sergeant Melinda, she's great.
Yes.
She's awesome.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, yeah, just awesome. We always chat it up, don't we, Chris? And we can probably go till, the cows come home. Do we know when the girls left on the camping trip? I don't know the exact date on that.
I don't either.
I just know that week has been kind of quiet. I don't know details on that one. So, so it's getting late. We've already been on for an hour and 45 minutes.
Wow.
So glad for all of you to join us. And Chris, so happy to have you on. Now, I know you're busy out there, and I'm going to send you that stuff like I promised.
Okay.
Take me a little bit to find it. And that's about it. Do you have anything else to say or any thoughts on Bear before we end this? I mean, I know you and I are going to be going back and forth on this, and we're going to have you on again, obviously, and we'll talk about that. May 27th is going to come fast. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's happening. We're, some of the things I think we need to consider as just, civil friends and family, and, shout out to Canada, right? Our friends and the rest of the world that's been watching this and following you, Linda, and the amazing thing that you've been, doing. When the forensic evidence comes back and, they have some stuff, then, we're going to high five each other. Okay. That, the right thing was done. We do not want to impede the integrity of this investigation. Miss Linda Stanley, the DA here, she's on it. And, we don't want to be chasing, false rumors. If I can plug can I plug my video?
Of course. In fact, if the mods could find that video for us, that would be even better to give the link.
It's what we learned about Barry Morphew. If you get a chance, you got to go. If you get a chance, go see that. Okay. And, take a look at some of the things we learned. We've got a lot more coming on top of that I've been working on, and that should be coming up pretty soon. But we're here on the ground. I've learned so much from the good people here. And I just think it's fantastic that we've been able to, be here. And we'll see what's going to happen over the next couple of days. Very interesting. Yeah. So watch that video. Yeah, I'm plugging it in there just now. And then after that, we also did a live stream after chit-chatting about it. So I recommend both of those. Once you watch that video that I just gave you the link to, I'll do it one more time. And actually, well, it's not going to be, I don't know if it's going to work even if I just pin it, but at least you can look at it and type, or just go to the interview room and you can see, how many days ago was that? 3 days ago. That was only 3 days ago, hey? Oh yeah, it was on Sunday. What was it, Sunday or Monday? Sunday. Yeah. Okay, so just go to that link and then check it out. It's fascinating, and bring some Kleenex as well, because there's some emotional bits to it. I will warn you now, but it's worth watching. Absolutely, 100%. And then subscribe to the interview if you haven't done, to the interview room if you haven't done so already, and be sure to subscribe here too as well if you haven't done so as well, and give it a thumbs up. Hit this one first, and then if you get time, hit it first, and then go over there. Hit this one first. If you get time, going over to that other guy show. And then also watch the playlist that I have. I have 2 playlists. One's on Suzanne Morphew in the entirety. I think there's about 40 videos, but I have a Barry Morphew playlist,
which talks about his theories. It talks about the triangle theory. It talks about the fire. And there's about 10 videos in there. So if you're curious, go check that out. You can see how my nerdy brain works and runs through things as well. So thank you so much, Chris, for hanging out tonight.
Thank you, Miss Linda. It's a
4,000
pleasure.
of you hanging out.
You're always fun.
Yeah, we'll have you on again for sure. Have a great night, everybody, and take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.